Halo, especially Halos 1 through 3, have a lot of religious themes in them. That has been covered at length by a number of people and is pretty obvious when you see it. But what is interesting to me is how Halo can have so much religious symbolism, so many moral lessons, without being cheesily preachy, like it was made solely for Sunday school and didn't care about being a fun game at all. And quite the opposite, Halo is super fun. While being one of the best shooters ever made, it's got the most religious themes, which is very risky, considering the fact that religion is basically the number one cause of arguments and wars in the world. And video games are one of, if not the most expensive media to produce. So if they alienate any religious group or atheists, it costs them millions. But the folks at Bungie felt brave enough and or smart enough to stuff a ton of references and themes in. I mean, the fact fans will argue about things like sprint or art style more than religion is actually very impressive. Real quick, for those who weren't around 20 years ago, for Halo 1, here's the gist of the plot. Humans are getting genocided by a religious alien empire called the Covenant. During this war, they stumble upon Halo, which is a glorious artificial world built by an ancient race, the Forerunners. The Covenant really want to activate these sacred rings, and so do the robots left behind by the Forerunners, but they have very different reasons to want to do it. The Covenant want to harness the Divine Wind to go where the Forerunners went, but the AI want to activate them to kill everything, to burn out an all-consuming alien zombie called the Flood. But in true video game fashion, the only thing that happens in Halo 1 is the player character proves they are the best by blowing everything up.
Halo 1 was made the same year as 9/11, and that certainly reminded the developers of religious extremism and helped it be received well, but it's a stretch to say that the Covenant were meant to be Muslims or any other human culture, unless you can find a culture that builds exclusively in the color purple. The names, shapes, and sounds of the Covenant aren't Arabic, they're just alien, so they could very easily represent any extremists. Crusaders, Pharisees, ISIS, even dogmatic communists, or any other group that believes violence is the best way to achieve their goals. The other factions are also pretty generic. The humans are pretty American, but it's still a diverse America with no explicit religion, and it'd be really hard to make a human faction not look like a human culture. As it stands, the Covenant simply represent religious extremism from any culture, and the humans simply represent humanity. Another ingredient that helps them include so much religious meaning without offending people is making sure that the aliens are clearly shown to have a lot of good in them, even though they've done a lot of bad.
Other than the comic relief infantry, no faction is made to look like brickheads. There aren't big, mocking dialogues about how stupid the extremist Covenant are, how evil the false religion is, or if the galaxy was obviously created in 7 days, or about 5 trillion. And on the flip side, humans aren't made to be heartless or depressingly nihilistic atheists or anything, or somehow worthy of their genocide. Most everyone is just pursuing their own survival and doing what they think are right. Forerunner robots are just following basic protocol. The writers actually made the elites look super cool and being honorable warriors for their religion, even though it's clearly a false one. And when they learn it's false, they stop killing the humans, and the humans stop killing them. I think it's this humanizing of warring parties that makes Halo's story so palatable to so many people of different faiths. No one is villainized or made to look immaculate because of whatever they believe or what race they were born as. Their morality is based on if they work to expand wars or end them. It's mainly the bad leadership of each faction that brings about the wars. The false prophets, the brutes, and after Halo 3, the human leadership at Oni. False beliefs alone didn't start the Human Covenant War. There came a point when the prophets of the Covenant could have realized that the humans were the Forerunners they worshipped, but instead they held on to their power and let it blind them to the realities of the universe. The Flood, on the other hand, in all seriousness, are just the devil. The species of the universe would probably have a full, diverse, peaceful galaxy if it weren't for them infecting the Forerunners. But the Flood are so inhuman that they can't be a symbol for any one group or belief system in the real world. So no one should feel insulted by what the Flood does, and that makes them a great villain. They are just the dirty, ravenous animal in all of us. They are the wrath of God. They are
a monument to all your sins.
The only time there's gore in the Halo games is when the Flood are involved. And besides that, the game is surprisingly clean. Bungie's art style is almost minimalist, and the music sounds like something you'd hear in a church, even during a lot of the combat. This relative lack of sensory information is pretty important in providing an environment to contemplate the themes of Halo, so that even when the higher themes are not directly discussed, there's still a space to contemplate them without flooding the mind with endless action.
Ever wonder what's up there?
Most importantly, the plot is pretty complex, but there's still a lot we aren't told about the origin of the Flood, or how the Forerunners lived their lives, letting them stay very mysterious and supernatural. Right now, I should clarify that I think the Forerunners were retconned when they made them a separate race from the humans, rather than very distant ancestors. I know some people disagree on this, but hopefully we can just agree to disagree on this and see them as two separate stories, with some benefits to both of them. In the Bungie trilogy, all we really knew about the Forerunners was that they sacrificed their utopian galactic civilization so that the humans and all other aliens could survive the Flood's devastation. That is godlike benevolence. To have a group of people agree no chance of their own survival was the best course of action, because self-destruction was the most sure chance for their children's survival. That story of galactic sacrifice really impresses me whenever I hear it mentioned in any degree, or travel through the vast, empty, glorious structures they left behind. It is this intense amount of charity that makes the Forerunners a pretty solid symbol for deity, even specifically Christ, because the only thing he had to gain from suffering on earth and sacrificing himself was the salvation of his children. He didn't have to come here, he wanted to. The core theme of sacrifice even carries on strong in Halo Reach, Bungie's least religious game. Noble Team essentially made the same decision the last Forerunners made, to allow a small number of people to survive Cataclysm while sealing their own destruction. The themes of military sacrifice are pretty strong in Halo 2's beginning, Halo 3's ending, and all throughout the series.
So, to recap, the three big elements on being able to tactfully discuss important topics in a shooter of all places is to make factions of generic cultures so that bad ideas are discussed but no one is personally vilified. 2. Make sure there's balance and humanity shown in all belief systems. And 3. That there is enough space given in every aspect of the video game to stop and contemplate the themes. If you liked the video, tell me about it in the comments and consider subscribing. I hope you all have a great day.